In this video, I'll be sharing my review for the newest iPad Air 4 after a month of use from an artist's perspective. Hello, my name is Vicky and I'm a digital artist. As I said in my unboxing, I've been using pen tablets for over 10 years and the iPad Air is the first screen tablet that I buy for drawing. I'm going to put some timestamps about the different topics that I'm going to talk about so you can skip ahead if you want. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I thought at the beginning it was gonna be cool, but I go back to drawing on my pen tablet from time to time. But let me tell you, I have not put this thing down since I got it. I used to have my pen tablet on my desk in front of my laptop all the time, but right now I had to put it away because all I've been using is this iPad and Procreate for drawing. And of course I'm gonna go back to it whenever I want to draw comics, but right now all I'm using is the iPad and I don't think that's gonna change anytime soon. Okay, now let's start with the review. I'm gonna start with the display. You already know the iPad display looks beautiful. It has bright colors, deep blacks, high brightness, and contrast. If you wanna watch movies or play games, you'll love it. But I'm gonna focus more about the drawing experience and let me tell you, it is amazing. There is no lag while I'm drawing, so you don't really have to worry about the 60Hz refresh rate versus the 120Hz. You won't notice a difference while you're drawing because the software is so well optimized. The brightness is also great. I actually never put it on max brightness because I'm always using it inside. When I'm drawing, I usually have the brightness bar in the middle or slightly above. If you watched my accessories video, you saw I bought a matte screen protector from AliExpress. It cost me around $6, so you may think it has a crappy quality, but so far it's been great. I've seen other videos talk about all the different screen protectors and they always say that matte screen protectors tend to change the colors of the images or the quality, but I don't notice it at all. If you get pretty close, you'll notice a bit of granulation, but it doesn't bother me for watching videos and I can still draw perfectly fine. The texture is excellent for using the pen. So far, I have 0 scratches on it and I hope it stays clean for a while before I need to change it. But either way, this proves that you don't need to spend $40 on a matte screen protector just because all your favorite YouTubers tell you that you need it. A cheap one will work just as well. I'll leave the link to the one I bought in the description if you're still looking for a cheap alternative. Now let's move on to the storage and RAM on this iPad. I bought the base iPad Air with 64 gigs of storage and it has 4 gigs of RAM. I've seen people complain about this iPad and tell artists to go for the Pro instead because of those two things. Well, the 2018 iPad Pro base model came with 64 gigs of storage and 4 gigs of RAM, and yet I've seen YouTubers tell people to buy that one instead of the iPad Air that has a newer and better processor. I think some people really like to fall for the Pro branding and they think they need it just because it's for pros, but in reality, you'll be just as fine with the iPad Air. It has the best qualities from the Pro, like the all-screen square design, the magnetic pencil, and the Magic Keyboard. You don't need the Pro unless you want a bigger screen or more than 256 gigs of storage, because that's the only other option with this iPad, and that upgrade is still cheaper than the base 2020 iPad Pro. Let's talk about Procreate layer limit. Another thing that artists talked about a lot and another reason they were recommending the iPad Pro over the Air was about the layer limit in Procreate because of the RAM. Before this iPad came out, we didn't know what the RAM was because Apple for some reason never talks about RAM on their devices, so most people assume it would have 3 gigs like the previous model, but turns out it has 4, just like the 2018 iPad Pro. When it launched, Procreate wasn't updated to take advantage of the RAM and the new chip on this iPad, so it actually had a lower limit than the regular 8th-gen iPad. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. This is a screen capture of the 8th-gen iPad from a friend, and this is from my iPad Air during the first week. But within the first couple of weeks since launch, it has updated and now you can use a ton of layers, even on an A4 size canvas at 300 dpi, which is one of the more common sizes for printing, so you'll be fine either way. Now I want to talk about the storage. I've seen many people say that 64 gigs is not enough for artists, and I thought that was absurd. In my current laptop, I have a folder with all of my digital drawings since 2009, including the PSD file and the PNG file, and that folder with over 10 years of art is only 46 gigs of storage. So I thought if I'm gonna be using this iPad probably for 5 years or so, 64 gigs will be more than enough, but I checked my current storage and that's when I began to get worried. Right now I have 30 gigs of storage used already on my iPad and that's not even from drawings. That's mostly pre-installed apps and the system itself, and I don't even know what that means exactly. So the actual usable storage on this iPad brand new would be around 4 or 5 gigs. That still sounds usable for art because, as I said, 10 years of art for me meant only 46 gigs. But then I realized that Procreate files are actually a lot heavier than Photoshop files, and let me show you a comparison. Procreate file versus Photoshop file weight. This is the drawing of Link that I did for the Hyrule Warriors video from a couple of weeks ago, and I exported it from Procreate both in Procreate and PSD, and look at the difference. The PSD file only weighs 26 megabytes, but the Procreate version weighs 83 megabytes, over 3 times the size. Can someone explain why does it weigh so much? The only thing I can think of is that the Procreate version includes the video playback inside the file, but is that low quality video so heavy that it triples the file size? Right now I'm wondering how long will it take until I fill up these extra 34 gigs that I have left. I'll probably do a video about it in the future if you want an update on that. Let's talk about some storage alternatives. If you already bought your iPad Air with 64 gigs, there's always other options. I don't recommend using iCloud to save your files because when you upload something to iCloud, it downloads it back again, so you'll just be filling your storage faster if you do that. I don't know why it works like that, but it does. What I recommend is that you get an external hard drive. I have one from Samsung that I've had since 2013 or so with 750 gigs of storage. They are very cheap nowadays. You can get one with 500 gigs or even 1 or 2 terabytes for around 50 bucks, and that'd still be cheaper than upgrading the iPad internal storage. It'd be easier if Apple would let us put micro SD cards, but that ain't an option, so that's what we have. Do take into account that most of these external hard drives have a USB-A cable, so you'd either have to get an adapter or buy a cable that ends in USB-C, which is probably a better option because the adapters won't always work. Another option that you can get, and it's a lot smaller, is to get one of these SD card readers with a USB-C port. They're very cheap too, and then get an SD or micro SD with 128 gigs of storage or even more if you want. You should also take into account that for your iPad to be able to read your external hard drive, you have to format it into the Apple macOS format. Doing it from a Mac is very easy, but if you use a Windows computer, I have no idea how to do it or if that's even possible. So do some research before you invest your money in some storage. Okay, now that all that ramble about the storage is out of the way, let's talk about drawing on Procreate. There are many drawing apps for the iPad, both free and paid, and they have different tools. They all have their pros and cons, but Procreate is by far the most popular between the art community. But that's mostly because that's the app that Apple invested their money on, so they'll make sure you buy it. I've tried a few of the free apps available for the iPad, but none come close to how good the interface is and just how fun it is to draw on Procreate. I'll probably do a few app comparisons in the future since I want to get more in depth into that, but right now I'll only focus on the one that I've been using for the past month. At the beginning, it was a little hard for me coming from desktop apps like Clip Studio and Photoshop to this simple, straightforward interface with a lot less tools and a different brush engine from what I'm used to. But with a little practice, I eventually got used to it. Even though modifying the brushes the way that I wanted them was very confusing at the beginning, I eventually got it. Right now I'm loving this app, but there's only one thing that I really don't like about it, and that is the smudge tool. Let me show you how the smudge tool and blur tool work on my other programs like Clip Studio and for Alpaca. In most of these programs it works the same. The smudge tool has a bit of a harder edge and will push and pull your colors and lines a bit harder, while the blur tool will just make it all blurry. In Procreate there is no blur tool like in these programs. The smudge tool here is kind of a mix between the smudge and blur from the others. You can use Gaussian blur with your pen instead of the whole layer, but it works like crap, so I never use it. I'm stuck using the smudge tool for blurring as well, and let me tell you, it doesn't do it well, or at least not the way that I want it to. That being said, I still managed to make a decent job with it. If you'd like to see me compare Procreate to other iPad apps, let me know in the comments below which apps would you like to see compared. Now for my final thoughts. After all the rambling and complaining aside, I still really love my iPad and I love drawing on it every day. This is the best tool I have ever had for drawing, and I would totally recommend any artist, either beginner or professional, to get one of these. But if you're a pro, I'd suggest you go for the storage upgrade, but for beginners, this is probably fine. Anyway, so that has been it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you get an iPad Air for drawing? Which stories do you get? Do you agree with me about the smudge tool in Procreate, or do you not care about it? Anyway, thanks a lot for watching, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you'd like to see more detailed art videos and tutorials. See you in the next one.